I'm Sherry Kendall, and welcome to Hometown Salutes. I have a very special guest today. Last month, we interviewed his dad, Derek Davis. So today we have his son, Caleb Davis, and he is United States Coast Guard.
Yes, ma'am.
So welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us, I've never interviewed somebody from the United States Coast Guard.
There's not many of us around here.
Tell me how you got into that.
Yeah, well, I finished my first couple years of college after high school, and I kind of came to the realization that what I was doing in my degree field was not what I was interested in for a career. And I kind of began to consider law enforcement, so I spoke with a gentleman that I knew who went to my church and kind of asked him what things on a resume they were looking for. And he was the first person I knew of who ever mentioned, have you considered joining the Coast Guard or military service in general? Now, obviously, I mean, you interviewed my father. I come from a military family. My brother's in, my brother-in-law, both grandfathers, several uncles. So I'd considered it, but I never really thought it was, something for me. But when I spoke to this gentleman, it made sense just as a career builder and a way to finish my school and, kind of get some work and life experience. So I ended up having a contact from years ago at a church camp, I believe we met at, and this guy was in the Coast Guard. So I reached out to him and asked him what his experience was like and what the a day in the life was basically. And after talking to him for a little bit, I got in touch with the Coast Guard recruiter. Now the nearest Coast Guard recruiter is down in Louisville, Kentucky. There's nothing really close by for us. So every time I had to go down for a meeting, it was a 3.5 hour drive. Yeah, I met with Chief Jamie Simmons was his name. He did the whole recruiting process for me, and I believe it was February of 2017 when I shipped out to basic training. So
where is basic training?
Coast Guard basic training is Training Center Cape May, New Jersey. It's like on a small island just across from Cape May, New Jersey, the town. And everyone who joins the Coast Guard goes through basic training there, all the enlisted personnel. And it's an 8-week training period. Well, they say it's 8 weeks, but for some people it can be a little longer, depending upon how well you perform or in some cases how poorly you perform. But luckily I got out of there in just 8 weeks. It wasn't any longer. So it was from January to April, I believe. Early April is when I graduated.
Okay. So what is a day like in basic training in the Coast Guard?
Well, so each week is obviously like its own block of instruction, basically. So your first week, you're doing a lot of the administrative kind of indoctrination stuff. You're getting familiarized with how they want you to act, because everything's very structured and very specific. You do a lot of medical in processing, a lot of paperwork. You get your uniforms. Week 2 is when it kind of really kicks off, and each week, like I said, is its own block of instruction. So, as the weeks progress, their expectations of you get a little bit more serious, and they kind of expect you to perform well under pressure. And we had a variety of things. I mean, obviously you think of basic training, and I think what comes to most people's mind is, the physical aspect of it.
Right.
You're going out and they're yelling at you and you're doing push-ups and you're doing runs and, all that nonsense, which we had quite a bit of, but a lot of basic training is sitting in a classroom trying to stay awake watching PDF and PowerPoint presentations. So, I mean, we had everything from, the history of the Coast Guard to basic seamanship classes. We had a whole class on how to tie different knots, and we had like a test on that. They give you firefighting classes because there's so much involved with being on a boat. You have to be your own first responders, whether it's law enforcement or fire or medical. When you're on that ship, you're an isolated community, so they have to have somebody that covers all of those roles. So basic training, they kind of get your feet wet in every different area of what you will later go on to specialize in your career. So they do, the 8-week period, and then after you graduate, in the Coast Guard and you go to your first unit. It's unlike other branches, where in other branches you'll choose a job specialty when you enlist. You'll be like, I want to be an infantryman or motor T or whatever your MOS or job specialization is that you select. In the Coast Guard, you have effectively a journeyman period. So you go to your first unit and you'll have a job But they will also, kind of allow you to do some level of job shadowing to the they're called rated. If once you get your job specialization, you're considered a rated personnel, rated petty officer. So you get to kind of see what the other jobs are that are on the table, and kind of decide what it is that you want to do, and pick that, and then you put your name on a waiting list basically to go to your technical school.
Okay. So then what was your specialized training?
My specialty was I was a gunner's mate. They abbreviated GM. So I was a gunner's mate, a third class petty officer. So I was an E4. That was after I did 2 years at the police department, and then I went to my gunner's mate training, and then I was down in North Carolina. So gunner's mates are in the Coast Guard largely weapons operation, maintenance, and use. So we run ranges, we maintain the weapons, we clean them, we fix them. On the ships, that includes, everything up to like the 25 millimeter and the Mark 75, some of the larger weapons, and then, all your small arms. The Coast Guard uses the M4 and the SIG P229 and some Remington shotguns and stuff like that. We maintain all the weapons and all the ammunition. It's a lot more paperwork than I expected it to be. Obviously it's a government position, so everything is very, very specifically documented and tracked. So every gun has a serial number. Every round is accounted for, and all of that has a paper trail somewhere. So. Definitely, every job has paperwork, but I think, when you're a young kid and you're looking to join the military, and you just kind of see the guns, you don't see the stack of paperwork behind them. So
that's funny. So when your specialized training was over, where did you go? Like, where were you stationed?
I was in North Carolina. Ironically, I actually worked on a Marine Corps base. Coast Guard's Special Missions Training Center is located on Marine Corps Base Camp Lejeune in Jacksonville, North Carolina. And the Special Missions Training Center is the home for the Coast Guard's all of our deployable law enforcement training and all of our pre-deployment training. So any of the Coast Guard members that go overseas to our overseas units, Kingdom of Bahrain, we have people in Puerto Rico. I believe even Alaska is considered an outside the continental United States station, so they'll go through some pre-deployment training. But we were the training center for all of those.
Okay. So did you ever go overseas, or were you always?
I did not. No, I did.
You were always
my
in the
first.
States.
Yeah, I was stateside the entire time. I had a rather unconventional Coast Guard career. I was in 4.5 years and never set foot on a boat. My first 2 years were at the police department in Baltimore with the Coast Guard police there, and then my technical training in Yorktown, Virginia, and then from there to North Carolina. So not a lot of time on the water, unfortunately.
So how long were you in Baltimore?
I was in Baltimore for 2 years, so, just under. Right after I graduated basic training in April of 2017, I reported to Baltimore, and then I was there until January of 2019, so just shy of 2 years.
So there's not barracks there, right?
No,
do you have...
luckily the Coast Guard doesn't have a lot of government housing. We're such a small branch. The majority of our facilities are leased or borrowed from other government branches or military branches. So, like when I, in North Carolina, the unit I was on was on Camp Lejeune. So we kind of luck out when it comes to that. We don't usually have to stay in barracks or government quarters. Most locations you'll go to in the Coast Guard, you'll have a housing allowance, and you'll be able to. They call it you're living on the economy, is what they call it, living out on the economy. So you'll have to find your own place and live that way. There are a few larger units where they do have some government housing. So most of the training centers, like when I was in my technical school, I was in barracks there. It's kind of like a small college campus that everyone in the Coast Guard goes to for all their technical schools. So there's one on the East Coast and one on the West Coast, and they have barracks there. And then obviously when I was in basic training, we had barracks. We were in barracks there. They didn't let us go home at the end of the day. But yeah, largely most places in the Coast Guard, you're going to be living on the economy, and they give you a housing allowance for those. But kind of a nice break.
Yeah.
So
what is a typical day when you got out to do your job? What did your job? What all did you do?
Well, I did vastly different jobs
And what kind of hours?
Yeah, in Baltimore, it was totally different than when I was in North Carolina as a gunner's mate. When I was at the police department in Baltimore, we did 48s. So we did 48 hours on, 48 hours off. So we would spend 48 hours on the base on duty, basically, and they had it split up into 4 12-hour shifts. You would either work 2 12-hour day shifts or 2 12-hour night shifts. And then every other weekend we called it sliding weekends. Every other weekend was either a 3-day work day or a 3-day work weekend or a 3-day off weekend, which was nice because, twice a week or twice a month I would get a 3-day weekend off. Now, obviously the work weekends weren't that great, but it's pretty quiet on the weekends.
Right.
So when I was at the police department in Baltimore, we were military police, so we did facility security and law enforcement. We would respond to any emergency calls that we got through our 911 system. We did, unfortunately, I mean, a lot of what we dealt with was large amount of drug problems and some workplace violence, but it was definitely a growing experience. I mean, I came from here, and my only job experience prior to joining the military was construction. I worked for the Department of Transportation for a while, so it was kind of a culture shock, joining the military and then going to my law enforcement training, my police training, and then doing the job there. It was pretty quiet most days, but we had every once in a while you have a few hair-raising calls. When I was in North Carolina as a gunner's mate, I was training support, so we would do everything from ammunition maintenance or ammunition inventory and transportation to weapons maintenance. We would do. Our armory managed some blocks of instruction, so our armory was responsible for teaching the maintenance and operation of the Mark 19 40-millimeter grenade launcher. We ran that course in-house, and then we would assist some of the other training groups with some of their training blocks. We had our armory had some firearms instructors who would go out to the range and teach basic marksmanship with the rifle or the shotgun or the pistol, and then just a lot of maintenance. I mean, we were the Coast Guard's largest source of ammunition expenditures came from our unit because we did so much training. So. And the paperwork I mentioned there was probably a little more so just because we were such a large unit. But there's a lot of maintenance that's involved with maintaining all those weapon systems, making sure they're safe to use and clean to use every day for, anywhere from 50 to 300 students, depending upon, how many classes we were running at that time. So.
Wow. So is there anything funny that you'd want to share with us that happened during your time in the service? I didn't know if you wanted to share about when your dad came to visit. I thought that was funny.
Oh, yeah. My dad came to visit me when I was in Baltimore. I'd just gotten off of a 24-hour or a 48-hour, I was doing nights, so the 2 12-hour night shifts. He was coming up to visit me because it was one of my off weekends, and he was just going to meet me at the base. I'd let the gate guard know that it was my father, and he was going to let him in. And so I get the call from the gate while I was in the duty room, wakes me up, and I'm rubbing the sleep out of my eyes. And I go down to the police department to meet him, and he's not there. So we actually had a call complaint that there was a gentleman walking around the waterfront taking pictures. And of course it was my dad. So I see these photos on Facebook of our installation. And one of the things that they tell us to look out for when we're doing facility security is unauthorized personnel taking photographs. And here was my dad and unauthorized personnel walking around the waterfront taking photographs of everything. So
and he got a hard hat to go out.
Yeah. The one of the base officers just gave him a hard hat and was like, "Yeah, man, go ahead and head on down the waterfront. Just wear this hard hat and safety glasses, and you'll be fine." So
that's hysterical.
But the things people get away with.
Yeah. So life lessons. Are you glad you joined the military? And I mean,
I am glad I joined, and I'm glad I'm out. It was a fantastic growing experience. I think it was something I needed personally. Matured in a lot of ways. And definitely saw some things that changed my perspective. But I didn't want to do a full 20 years. I didn't want a career out of it. Just the job wasn't wasn't specifically what I was looking for. But again, I'm very thankful for the experience. So.
You'd gone to college before.
I had, yeah.
Right?
I've been a college senior since like 2016. I'm still sitting on that. But yeah, I did 2 years full time, and then I did it like another half year, like one semester before I joined the military. While I was in, I was able to use the tuition assistance program to do about 3 or 4 courses while I was in the military. Hard to kind of manage the lifestyle and the schedule of being in the military and taking classes, but I was able to get some done, and I plan on finishing my career using the GI Bill, or my degree.
Okay.
Using the GI Bill now that I'm out.
So let's talk about when you graduated. You were getting pinned.
Yeah, my brother actually came when you get promoted from junior enlisted to what they call your non-commissioned officer or a petty officer position. It's you're going from the lower enlisted ranks into like kind of the middle enlisted ranks. So I was promoted from E3 to E4, and in the Coast Guard, it's pinning your crows, getting your crows is what it's called. We take it from the Navy. On Navy petty officer insignia, there's actually a crow above the chevron. So you have a chevron that denotes your rank, and then the crow is like kind of the symbol of the NCO. In the Coast Guard, it's not a crow; it's actually a shield, but the phrase just stuck, so we still call it getting your crows. But my brother came down to my graduation, and he was the person that pinned my crows on when I was officially promoted in that ceremony.
And is he a brother that's in the service as well?
Yeah. He's in the Army National Guard. He's been in, this coming February will be right at 8 years, I believe. It may be a little bit more than that. I'm not sure, but it's been a while.
So is he making a career out of it?
No, that's actually not his plan. He's done all of his time, I believe, with one of the recon units. He works out of Fort Wayne, is where his unit is, and he's enjoyed his time. But I believe he's getting out actually at the end of his enlistment this February. So. Well,
how special was that he got to do that?
It was really cool, yeah.
Yeah. So now that you're out, what's your plans?
Well, my parents are letting me live with them for free, and that's pretty great.
That's awesome.
No, I'm working right now. I'm just doing some subcontracting for a local gentleman who was kind enough to take me on and teach me what he knows. I was pretty proactive in the job hunt when I was getting close to the end of my enlistment, and I was lucky enough to get a job offer from the Department of the Air Force down in Lackland Air Force Base in Texas for one of their military police positions. Now, this will be a federal civilian position, so I won't be in the military, which suits me just fine. But I'm in the hiring process for that right now, kind of just a hurry up and wait.
Wow.
But, they said it could take 2 to 6 months for that to kind of go through. But those are my plans at the moment, is to move down there once I get hired. There's a 14-week police academy in Arkansas, and then I'll be on my way.
Wow. So to be on the civilian side, does your military time on that kind of a job, will that all transfer?
Yeah, it's really nice the way that it works for federal service. So and this is, I believe, I may be mistaken here, but I'm fairly certain with any federal position that you take, your military time will transfer over towards your retirement. So there's a brief like buyback period or something they call it, but by and large, I'll be able to retire at 15 and a half years, basically, of working down at this position instead of the full 20, because my Coast Guard time will transfer.
Wow. So you'll do policing, patrolling?
Yeah, I'll be pretty much what I was in the Coast Guard my first couple of years in Baltimore. It'll be a very similar job to that, a military police position. I'll be on Joint Base San Antonio, which includes Lackland, Fort Sam Houston, and there's a third installation that I'm not sure, but it's all combined into under the umbrella of Joint Base San Antonio. So they provide the policing services for that entire area.
Okay. So as far as Coast Guard goes, I mean, the main job, when I think of a Coast Guard, I think of
search and rescue.
Right. So there's other things that all this involves.
Yeah, the Coast Guard
has. There's a lot.
And that's what kind of attracted me to the Coast Guard in the first place, was just the breadth of missions that they have. They have, without reference, it's either 11 or 13 statutory missions that they perform. There's search and rescue, obviously, which is probably the most famous. And then counter narcotics is probably the one that after search and rescue that they're most well known for. But there's also aids to navigation. The Coast Guard services buoys and navigation markers in all intercoastal and territorial waters, as far as out to the exclusive economic zone. So my roommate actually, when I was in North Carolina, was a bosun's mate, also in the Coast Guard. He worked on a construction tender, and they serviced all of the seagoing buoys that are for navigational purposes. We do the whole gamut of maritime law enforcement, so immigration, narcotics, trafficking, smuggling, piracy, and even fisheries. Fisheries is the one job that I heard a lot of people don't want to get stuck with, but I never had to experience that. We do polar ice breaking as well. The Coast Guard has two polar ice breakers that service predominantly scientific missions to the North and South Pole, and they'll go up and down servicing the research stations that are there at both the North and South Poles, like providing provisions and bringing the scientists down from NOAA and stuff like that. I couldn't tell you all of them. There's too many to count, but the Coast Guard does a wide variety of things.
Yeah, I guess I just never even realized that until you told me that earlier. So let's tell me a little bit about your family. So your mom and dad, you all live here in Connersville.
Yeah, I'm the youngest of four. I just moved back. I just got out of the Coast Guard in June. I've been here for a couple months now. My older brother is also local. He's a police officer around here, and he's the one that's in the Army National Guard. And then I have two older sisters. One lives out in Boston with her husband, and then my oldest sister and her husband, Jerome, he's in the Air Force, and they have 3 kids, and they're out in Washington State. So Jerome's been in the Air Force, I want to say, going on 8 years. And as far as I know, I think he's planning on making a career out of it, but don't quote me on that.
Okay.
So, and then, yeah, my parents both still live here. My dad was in the Air Force for 10 years, and he was in Texas and Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, which is where I was born, and then got out a couple months after I was born. So I never had the military brat childhood experience, but I don't know that I was missing out on much. So
Yeah. That's awesome. So is there anything you want to tell us that we didn't touch base on that you'd like to share with everybody? Is there anything funny, anything?
Well, the majority of my funny stories are from boot camp. Everything else after that was
Not funny.
a little less funny, maybe funny in hindsight. Basic training is also funny in hindsight. I mean, you're not allowed to laugh while you're there, but they do everything that they can to kind of provoke you to laughter just so that they can get you in trouble. So one of the things that they would do is during our meal times, there's a very specific pattern of movement that you're supposed to take around the cafeteria, the mess hall. You have to hold your tray a certain way. You have to eat your food a certain way. You have to walk certain paths. And if you stray from that in any capacity, they're like right on you. There was one day I was going into the mess hall, and I was in Cape May from January to April, so kind of the end of winter. It was really icy, a lot of sleet. You're up in New Jersey, so it gets pretty cold. I was walking into the mess hall. I'd just gotten off pack watch, which is where you watch everybody's bags, and I was running up the steps. I was going as fast as I could up the steps without actually running, so nobody yelled at me, and I ended up tripping on the top step. And when you fall, you're going to throw your arms out to keep from falling on your face. So I threw my arms out, and I must have yelled or some kind of involuntary shout. And one of the company commanders happened to be behind me, and all I heard was this, Davis. And obviously, I froze right where I was, and I was like, who was that? so you got to do facing movements anytime you move. So I'm trying to about face to turn around to this guy, and he's like, "What'd you just do?" And when you're when you're addressing any of the company commanders or any of the command cadre, you have to shout. So everything is just shouted at the top of your lungs. I'm not going to shout right now, so just imagine. But I was like, Petty Officer, I don't even remember his name. I think it might have been Petty Officer Placencia. I was like, Seaman Recruit Davis. I tripped. And he goes, well, it looks like you flapped your wings. And I was like, no, I just tripped. And he goes, well, it looked like you flapped your wings like a duck. Are you a duck, Davis? And I was like, no. He goes, no, you're a duck. So he drags me out to the front of the building, and there's a big bay window, so everybody inside can see what's going on outside. And he positions me right in front of the window. All of the company commanders for my company were eating lunch, right in there. So they're watching this. They all had, put down their forks, and they're just watching this guy drag me out in front of the window. And he's like, all right, now squat. So I had to squat down. He goes, now stick your thumbs in your armpit. So, I stick my thumbs in my armpit.
No way.
And he goes, now flap your wings and quack like a duck. So, I was 22, and I felt absolutely ridiculous. But I'm standing there flapping my wings and quacking like a duck in front of 300 people who are trying to eat lunch.
That's hysterical.
And the company commanders thought it was so funny they made us do duck watch for the entire day. So they said, because I still hadn't eaten, I was trying to go inside to eat, and we had 15 minutes to eat lunch. So 5 minutes, I'm just sitting out here flapping my wings. And so our lead company commander sends somebody outside to relieve me of duck watch. And this kid goes right where I was, squats down and starts flapping his wings like a duck. And they did it for the entire day. So every meal we had, they put somebody on duck watch right outside. And, obviously none of us are allowed to look at it and laugh, but they're trying to get us to laugh. So
that is hysterical.
Yeah.
Wow, that's something you'll never forget.
Unfortunately.
Well, Caleb, I want to thank you for joining me today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
I appreciate your dad coming on last month, and now you coming on this month, and you're my first United States Coast Guard, so I appreciate
There's not a lot of us around here, so.
No, that's awesome. Well, be sure to tune in next month as we will highlight another Fayette County veteran.